Hello Eurovision friends, thank you so much for coming to my channel Eurovision Histories for this, another pro-contra video on one of the favorites to win Eurovision 2025. Today we are talking about JJ, and as per usual I'm going to try to list all the arguments for JJ and Austria winning Eurovision this year in Basel, and then I'm going to try to find all the contra arguments, so all the arguments why JJ and Austria will not win Eurovision this year. I used your comments from the community tab of my channel again. They were incredibly helpful, lots of interesting ideas there. So thank you for helping me make these videos more interesting for all of us. So let's get right to it. I'm going to start with the pro side as per usual and give you all the reasons why JJ and Austria will win Eurovision this year. And the first argument, which I've seen the most in your comments really, are the sublime vocals by JJ. Obviously, he is a trained opera singer and he has incredible control in a high register where other male performers would never be able to go. So that is very impressive. The song gives him ample possibility to show his vocal prowess, and obviously, the juries love impressive vocals, and so a lot of you also say that because of the impressive vocals, he will be the jury favorite and might have a landslide jury win. I think the fact that the song is in English and the fact that it has somewhat of a traditional structure might also help this with the jury. So you really have the trifecta: great voice, lyrics in English, and a relatively traditional structure. So a good chance that this might actually be the jury favorite in the end. Also, lots of people compare this to last year's winner. Nemo also won the jury vote in a landslide, and so lots of people say that this will as well. Then the staging also promises to be quite epic. They have said that something will happen during the performance that has never happened on a Eurovision stage before. They engaged Sergio Jeanne, who also did the staging for Doomsday Blue, the Irish entry last year, and that was arguably one of the, if not the best staging of Eurovision last year. So he probably knows what he's doing. He said that he will have a bit of an intimate staging, focus on JJ as well. But only because you did one great staging doesn't mean you get it right every single time. However, Austria also has the surprise factor as opposed to their big competitor Sweden, because we have the Swedish staging from Melodifestivalen, and that probably will not change all that much for the Eurovision stage, but the Austrian staging will be something completely new, and that might give them a push in the odds as well. Then Austria is currently second in the odds, which is a good place to start, obviously, but it can also create a bit of a bandwagon effect. People want to be with the eventual winner, so they will either go with Sweden or with Austria. And especially for the juries, Austria is way more jury-friendly than Sweden is probably, so the juries might just go with Austria this year. This also kind of happened last year when Baby Lasagna was first in the odds, but the juries still went with Nemo, who was second or third, I don't quite remember. So this bandwagon effect for one of the favorites with the juries might happen again this year for Austria. Then he's a very experienced performer. He performs at the State Opera in Vienna, and you don't get in there if you don't know what you're doing. He has all of this practice from all of the performances he has done there. He's used to being on a stage. Obviously, Eurovision will be special, but he might be a lot less nervous than other performers might be that don't have this much experience on a stage. Obviously, he's quite young, but still, I think the experience argument really is important in this case. Another argument is that the song is really loved by Eurovision fans who usually don't really go for opera entries, pop opera entries all that much, but the fact that it's second in the odds, second in a lot of the fan votes as well, is a good starting position for this entry, I do think. The song is also high risk, and that might pay off. It's a very interesting and kind of weird mix of genres. You have opera and electronic music put together. That's something new that makes it stand out. And so it is a big risk because people might be taken aback by it, but maybe it will pay off because it just stands out and is very special as a song. And then the end, the very intense climax with the electronic elements can be the winning moment of this song, this epic moment on the stage with this very high final note as well. So the song does have something you might call a winning moment. And then the fact that we have televote only semifinals means lots of televote friendly songs will qualify to the final. And then we also have lots of televote magnets like Ukraine, like Israel, potentially Albania and Poland this year as well. We have obviously Finland and Estonia and Malta who will get lots of televotes. So they might spread out the televotes as so much that the jury winner will eventually be the winner in the end. Since we have televote only semifinals, the jury winner has won every single year. It's only been 2, but still it's becoming kind of a tradition. Then the song also has kind of a good hook for the style of song that it is, for a ballad. The wasted love part kind of stays in your head, and that will help it stay memorable. And it is also kind of a representation of national culture. Opera is a big part of Austrian music, obviously also Italian music and other music traditions, but still people kind of connect Vienna to opera, so that might help it, because sometimes I feel like people in Eurovision love a good stereotype. They want a big French ballad and a big emotional Italian ballad and some Finnish hard rock, it seems, at least to me. Now, these are all the pro arguments I could find. Now let's go to the contra side of things. The first counter-argument would be that opera doesn't do as well as people seem to think. If we exclude the code for a minute, and in a minute I will tell you why I think the code doesn't really fit this category of opera. If we look at the history of Eurovision, we have La Forza from Estonia, which came 6th only with the juries. Then we have Grande Amore from Italy, which also came 6th with the juries. And we have, for example, Zero Gravity from Australia, which also, can you guess it, came only 6th with the juries. So there's no reason to believe that just because you sing in a very high register or you sing really well, that automatically means that you will win the jury vote. So there's no real argument why Austria has to be the jury winner. Also, you need a huge jury margin to offset the televote margins that some countries will have. There are lots of televote friendly songs in the final, and Austria will probably suffer and not get as many televotes. So they need a huge jury margin. And if you look at La Forza, Grande Amore, and Zero Gravity, the songs that beat them in the jury vote were ballads or radio-friendly pop songs, and Wasted Love doesn't really have a real hit potential. And also we have other songs like France, like Switzerland, the Netherlands, Czechia, maybe also Denmark or Norway, that seem to be more in the jury lane and more naturally jury-friendly songs than Austria might be this year. Then, and this is, I think, actually one of the big arguments against Wasted Love winning, this isn't actually the code. It might be a fallacy to think that just because it's another operatic song with some other music elements in it, it will do just as well as the code, because the code, yes, was experimental, included lots of different genres, but especially if you think about the vocals, Nemo sang in a very high register only for very short parts of the song, and a lot of the song was actually in a normal pop register, and especially the chorus, the thing that stays in people's heads, was sung in a normal register, whereas Wasted Love is actually in an operatic singing style for most of the song, and the electronic elements only come in later on. I also think that the code is more catchy and has more hooks than Wasted Love overall. And you also have to remember that last year was a bit of a special situation because Jos Klein, one of the big televote favorites, was disqualified. So there were more televote points that could go to Nemo. For example, you also had Israel and Croatia getting almost all of the televotes. So Switzerland could win with only coming 5th with the televote because it had such a huge jury margin. And the televote winners, Croatia and Israel, did much worse in the jury vote as well. And you also had Sliman's voice cracking in the jury vote, and Sliman might have been the song and the entry that could have given Nemo a run for their money, and it didn't happen in the end, maybe because of the voice crack. And maybe Wasted Loves and Austria's competitors this year will be a bit luckier than Sliman was last year. It also kind of feels a bit inauthentic. You have the structure of the song and the epicness of the song, which feels like it was just added to the song, and also the electronic elements were just added to the song to give it more oomph and to make it more of a potential Eurovision winner. It's not really there to enhance the message of the song, it seems. There isn't really, for me at least, or for a lot of you in the comments as well, a connection between the singer and the words 100%. And that's just a bit of a pity, because the code, for example, really had a message. The whole experimental structure of the music made a lot of sense with the message of the song. And here you kind of feel like they added all the epicness just to make it more of a potential winner at Eurovision. Then the lyrics also add to this feeling. There are a lot of water metaphors, drowning and ocean of sadness and whatever you want. It feels like they Googled all of the metaphors you can have with water and they added them all into the song. It's a bit too much, and that makes it feel a bit inauthentic. The good thing for this part at least is that for a lot of the song, the lyrics are actually unintelligible, because I think because the register is so high, you don't really understand what he is singing about. Might be a positive or a negative depending on whether you like the lyrics or not. If you like them, obviously it's not a good thing that most people won't understand them the first time they listen to the song. Then, and this is kind of contradictory to what I just said before, but we're trying to find all the contra-arguments. The song is a bit too similar to the code, and usually songs that are similar to last year's winner or the previous year's winners don't do as well, because people feel like it's a try-hard. They're trying to copy what worked last year, and so that might be a detriment to its chances this year as well. Then something I might call the good voice fallacy. I already said, just because you sing incredibly well doesn't mean that the juries will shower you with points. And the main example for this for me is Ea Ya by Blanca Paloma for Spain in 2023. She obviously sang this incredibly well and hit all the notes the way she was supposed to hit them. But maybe the sounds of the music and also her voice were just too unusual for people and also jury members to really get behind the song. And so in the end, she didn't get that many jury votes, not as many as people were expecting at least, and even less televotes. And I think that most viewers of Eurovision will not be used to these operatic vocals. I know I'm not. I can't quite connect to songs in this style of singing, even though I like Grande Amore, but all of the other opera songs we just mentioned, and that includes, unfortunately, Wasted Love for me, is just too high and too pitchy for me. And I think a lot of viewers might feel the same way. And I also think that the jury members usually come from a pop background and are not as attuned to this operatic, the opera world really, and might not be as impressed by the operatic vocals for that very reason. Also, this year we have a lot of great singers that sing more in a pop range. And we have, however, also other entries like Belgium with a very high falsetto, and also Czechia at the end has some very high notes that might be more digestible for people than the operatic vocals by Austria, and they might go more for these entries. Belgium also is a electronic music song. Then the staging needs to work 100%. If you don't have the perfect staging for that last half of a minute when the electronic music sets in, or maybe it's a minute, the whole thing might fall apart and people might not be able to connect to it. And the disjointedness, or the fact that these two genres don't really go together might be more apparent if the staging doesn't work. We saw that at Eurovision in concert. He was just bouncing around at the end of the song, which was fun to watch, but it didn't really work, and it wouldn't work in a Eurovision staging. They won't be doing that, I'm quite sure, but still, you really have to nail the staging to drive this home and to convince people to vote for it. Then the last part, and that's part of where the staging needs to fit 100%, he seems to not sing these very high staccato parts in the last part of the song. Some people have said, how could he? It's almost impossible to do that. But people might be a bit taken aback that this great singer doesn't sing for a lot of the last part of the song. And then we also saw in Eurovision in concert that he's a great opera singer, and he's very good and has great vocal control in these higher registers, but he kind of struggled with the few lower register parts that we have in the song. And I think that the juries will really punish him if he doesn't get the lower register right as well. I think the televoters won't care as much. And then this mix of two very different genres might not work in the end and might be too high risk if you think of the pro argument, because these two genres are so different. Opera lovers might hate that they added an electronic part, and electronic music lovers might not be able to connect to the operatic part at the beginning of the song. And so you don't convince anyone really to vote for you because you're trying to please two very different sets of music lovers in your song. Then we also have many jury bait songs this year, and so the jury votes might be way more split than they were last year or 2 years ago. We already talked about why Nemo won with such a high margin, but also Loreen was a bit of a special case, and so people might commit the fallacy to think that every single year we're going to have a jury winner with a huge margin. That doesn't necessarily have to happen, and this year there are lots of arguments to have that it won't happen this year for all of the reasons I already mentioned. Then we have also other songs that might be compromise winners. Austria is very much a jury song, I think, will not do all that well in the televote, but we have some songs that might do well in both, like France, the Netherlands, and so coming third in both might in the end be enough to win the whole thing. And Austria is definitely, I think, not a compromise winner, but rather a jury winner if they do manage to win. Then people with the state of the world as it is might go more for a fun song than for a very dramatic song like Wasted Love. So that might be one other argument why it won't get as many televotes. And then Austria traditionally, like a lot of Central European and Western European countries, is not all that strong in the televote. So that is also a detriment that they don't have any automatic points that you can add to their tally automatically. And then this was an interesting argument, and I thought about it a bit. Others wanted more. Like France obviously wants to win Eurovision. They revealed their entry in a huge rugby stadium performance, and some other countries also want to win Eurovision quite a lot. And Austria, it's been 11 years already, but you don't get the feeling that they really need to win again because they haven't won for 40 or 50 years. So that might be another counter argument. These are all the pro and contra arguments I could find. Thank you again for your help in the community tab of my channel. And I'm going to do more pro contra videos like this one. So do subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss them. And then I might see you for my next video. See you then, and bye bye.